Hello and welcome, my amazing listeners. Today's shout out goes to my incredible audience tuning in from Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cameroon. Thank you so much for all the love and support. In a village where silence was expected, one woman's quiet strength would spark a legacy of change. Nandi's story isn't just about survival. It's about breaking chains, rewriting fate, and teaching her children that true strength lies in self-worth. But at what cost? Watch as her voice echoes beyond her life, transforming a community bound by shadows. Bakuta was a town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, a place where everyone knew each other's names and where secrets rarely remained hidden. It was a community bound by tradition, one where even silence spoke loudly. The market was always alive with traders calling out, women balancing vibrant goods on their heads, and children weaving through the bustling crowd. Nandi had once loved the energy of Bakuta, the way life seemed to hum around her, filling every corner with movement and sound. But beneath its familiar rhythms, Bakuta held its own secrets, woven deeply into the lives of its people, like old roots hidden in rich, dark soil. Nandi's marriage to Saye had been the talk of the village, a union that once seemed destined to bring laughter and light. Saye was known for his charm, a man whose easy laugh and playful words won the hearts of many. Nandi felt as if she'd been chosen by fortune. Each time he looked at her, it was as if he saw only her. She felt safe in his gaze, wrapped in an intimacy that only they shared. He had been gentle, caring, his voice a melody that softened her heart. But the Saye she loved seemed now only a memory, one that lingered in her mind like a shadow from a distant dream. Soon after their marriage, the whispers began, subtle at first, like ripples in a calm river. Women would glance at her in the market, sharing silent looks, their eyes filled with knowing. They spoke of her with sympathy or amusement, as though her story had become their story, shared in hushed tones. Sometimes a friend would reach out, their hand resting briefly on her shoulder, offering a small, wordless comfort that Nandi felt deeply but could not return. Each touch reminded her of her own restraint, of her need to shield her children from the full truth. She wanted them, her precious Kemi and Jabari, to know her as a mother of strength, a mother who did not falter under life's burdens. But in the solitude of night, away from the eyes of Bakuta, Nandi could not escape the truth. Saye's once warm gaze had become cold, his once loving touch now rigid, each moment between them marked by tension. His need to control her life seeped into every detail, who she spoke to, where she went, and even the color of her dresses. Her world, once wide and filled with laughter, had narrowed to the four walls of their home, with her only solace in the laughter of her children. Every day, a part of her spirit seemed to chip away, like an ancient statue slowly eroded by unrelenting storms. She told herself she could bear it for her children, that her endurance was a strength they would one day understand. But the endless seasons in Bakuta, the rains that washed away one year to bring another, wore down even her resilience. She began to wonder if she was clinging to a fading dream, risking her own sanity in the process. As she often thought, when the rains fall, they do not ask the leaves if they are ready. The elders of Bakuta held Nandi up as the embodiment of a good wife. A good wife endures all things, they would say, their voices heavy with the weight of tradition. Their words bore down on her, unspoken expectations binding her as tightly as Say's control. In their eyes, her silence was not a weakness, but a virtue, one that made her a model of grace and dignity. But alone in her room, under the quiet gaze of the moon, Nandi felt their praise as a heavy burden pressing on her heart. It was in these silent hours that anger, an anger she barely recognized in herself, began to stir. She felt its warmth in her chest, and it frightened her as much as it emboldened her. Nandi had grown up with stories of women who bore hardship with quiet dignity, tales woven with resilience, passed from mother to daughter. Her own mother had whispered to her, "A quiet river runs deep," teaching her that strength often came in silence. But as Say's behavior grew more erratic, she questioned whether this was the legacy she wanted to leave for Kemi. Was enduring suffering the only path? Or could she find a new way, one that offered her daughter a different kind of strength? The idea of leaving Saye terrified her. She knew that without him, survival would be a constant struggle. Where would she go? How would she care for her children alone? Yet she clung to the hope that her sacrifices would shield them from the storm that had become her life. If she could just endure a little longer, perhaps one day he would be safe. Yet in the pit of her stomach, she felt an unease, a knowing that perhaps her endurance alone was not enough. Kemi and Jabari were the light in Nandi's life, her anchor in the storm. Kemi, her eldest, was watchful, her sharp eyes noticing what others often overlooked. Jabari, on the other hand, was like the dawn, carefree, his laughter spilling over like sunlight. In them, Nandi saw fragments of the woman she once dreamed of becoming. She vowed to shield them from the darkness that cast its shadow over her life, hoping that they could grow up in the warmth she no longer felt herself. Yet Kemi, perceptive and curious, sensed the tension in their home. She would overhear conversations cut short, her mother's voice growing quieter, her father's growing sharper. Once, she even noticed a bruise on her mother's arm, a dark mark that Nandi tried to hide with her shawl. Kemi began to ask in her small voice, "Are you happy, Mama?" And Nandi, always smiling, would answer, "I am happy because I have you." In these moments, she would touch Kemi's face, silently praying that her daughter would never know her pain. Meanwhile, Saya's disdain grew. His once quiet disapproval became outright infidelity, an open secret among the women of Bakuta. They spoke of it in passing, their words soft, yet pointed as they traded goods in the market. He would disappear for days, returning with no explanation, the absence widening the gulf between him and Nandi. Each absence left her feeling more alone, her silence deepening into something as heavy as stone. One evening, Kemi, disturbed by her observations, shared her worries with Jabari. "Mama needs us," she whispered, and though Jabari didn't fully understand, he vowed to protect her. From that night on, the siblings took on a quiet responsibility, promising to be the strength their mother needed, even if they didn't yet understand the full extent of her pain. Over time, a quiet rebellion began to stir within Nandi. It grew from small moments, a thought, a memory, the whisper of an old song her mother had sung, that reminded her of the strength lying dormant within. She began to realize that perhaps enduring was not the only way to protect her children. Perhaps there was another way. In secret, she joined a gathering of women who had also known suffering. They met each week in an isolated clearing under the guise of fetching firewood. Here, they shared stories, weaving together their experiences into a tapestry of resilience. Mama Afua, an elder who had seen much in her time, took Nandi under her wing. Mama Afua had once been married to a harsh man, but she'd found her own path to freedom, living alone in a small hut near the forest. "A tree may bend," she whispered to Nandi, "but it does not break. You are stronger than he knows." These words became a mantra for Nandi, a promise she carried close to her heart. As the rains fell and the dry season returned, Nandi felt a shift within her, a flicker of courage growing day by day. One evening, after another of Say's long absences, she confronted him, her voice steady. "Do you think I don't know? Do you think I'll endure this forever?" Her words, so direct, shocked Say. He lashed out, leaving her bruised, but her spirit remained unbroken. Nandi's health, under the weight of stress, began to falter. She grew weaker, her strength ebbing like the last light of day. Kemi noticed her mother's weariness, the way she clutched her shawl more tightly, her steps slower. She began sneaking to Mama Efua's garden, gathering herbs to make teas that might ease her mother's pain. Jabari, though younger, sensed the gravity of the situation and became her silent guardian, following her, as if his presence alone could protect her. Kemi's worry grew. One night, gathering her courage, she whispered to her mother, "Mama, we don't need him. We can go to Mama Efua or grandmother's village. We'll be safe." Nandi, moved by her daughter's bravery, gently brushed her cheek. "One day, my love," she promised, holding Kemi close, "but not yet." The final confrontation came swiftly, Say's jealousy ignited by whispers of Nandi's gatherings. "Do you think I don't see what you're doing?" he shouted. Nandi, standing her ground, felt his fury strike her harder than ever before. But even in her pain, her spirit remained unbroken. Summoning her last reserves of strength, she gathered her children close. "Never let anyone tell you that you are worth less than you are," she said. "Remember this even if I am not here to remind you." On a calm night, Nandi passed away. Her shawl, worn and faded, was left with Kemi, a reminder of her mother's strength. The women of Bakuta mourned her, gathering to share stories of her courage and resilience. Mama Efua, standing tall, spoke to the crowd. "Remember Nandi, she did not break." Kemi and Jabari carried on her legacy. They shared her story, weaving it into the fabric of the village, a tale that reminded everyone of the strength found in the quietest places. Bakuta, once a place of silence, transformed slowly. Young girls learned to value themselves, and men were taught the importance of respect. Kemi and Jabari's message spread to neighboring villages, sparking a quiet revolution. They created new proverbs, reminders of their mother's courage, and spoke of the strength found in unbroken spirits. Bakuta, once silenced, now echoed with voices raised in memory of Nandi. Years later, Nandi's legacy lived on, transforming Bakuta from a village once steeped in silence to one where women's voices were raised and respected. Kemi and Jabari returned each year, speaking to new generations, reminding them of their mother's unwavering spirit. In this changed Bakuta, the village elders began to revisit old proverbs with a new understanding. Once they had said, "A strong woman endures everything," believing that silent endurance was the ultimate strength. But now, when elders recited these words, they added, "A strong woman knows her worth." The proverb evolved, and the village began to value resilience as not only enduring, but standing up for oneself, a lesson born of Nandi's legacy. The young women of Bakuta grew up with this new saying, and their parents, once silent, now encouraged them to be strong and unafraid. After Nandi's death, Saya was a man haunted by shadows. As the village women mourned, recounting Nandi's life and sacrifice, whispers of his cruelty and his control over her reached his ears. His pride, once wounded by his wife's quiet defiance, now simmered into a lonely resentment as he saw the community turn to honor her, to honor what she had endured and the legacy she had left. Saye's once comfortable life became difficult. The village elders began to question the role of husbands and the treatment of wives. Friends turned away from him, and even young people once encouraged to follow his lead grew wary of his ways. In quiet moments, Saye felt the weight of his actions pressing down on him. He had once believed that his control over Nandi was his right, a part of their shared culture. But as Bakuta changed around him, as women spoke and children learned the lessons of Nandi's life, he began to see his control for what it was, a hollow, brittle pride. In time, Saye became a recluse, his once loud laughter and charm gone. He watched as the village he had once been a part of, the community that had once accepted his ways, began to shun him, to turn away from the ideals he had once held. He became a symbol of the old ways, a warning rather than a model, his own silent punishment for the life he had taken from Nandi. Bakuta embraced an annual gathering in Nandi's honor, where women shared their stories and men were taught to honor and respect their wives, mothers, and sisters. Mama Efua, now frail but full of life, led these gatherings, reminding everyone that true strength lay not in silence alone, but in a voice raised against injustice. The village elders, once advocates of endurance above all, encouraged young men and women alike to embrace respect, kindness, and understanding. Saye's tale was told not as a condemnation, but as a caution, a reminder of the change that could come when courage and compassion replaced silence. And so, through the lives of Kemi and Jabari and the teachings of the community, Nandi's story lived on, not just as a lesson in endurance, but as a testament to the power of resilience, change, and self-worth. Her legacy became a light for others, breaking the old proverbs' hold and transforming Bakuta into a village that valued every voice. Nandi's legacy lives on, reminding us all that even the quietest strength can change the world. If her story moved you, subscribe for more tales of resilience, transformation, and courage. Join our community and let's keep these powerful stories alive together. Thank you.